Welcome to Rocket Ship, the podcast where web developers learn the skills and secrets to ship awesome mobile apps. I'm Simon Grimm, creator of Galaxies.dev, and today's guest is Jan Van Echelpoel. I hope I pronounced it correctly, it's a Belgian name. And Jan is an independent digital product builder, bridging the gap between design and development. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I really love this line. I took it from Jan's personal blog. So, as we've heard, you're bridging the gap between design and development. What does it mean?
Yeah. So, as you said, I'm an independent digital product builder, but I'm specialized in UI UX design and front-end development. So, that's why I can bridge the gap between design and development.
Yeah, I feel like just doing front end these days is not even enough anymore. Do you agree to that? I feel like having a strong understanding about both front end code but also design is really beneficial these days.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's an interesting thing to talk about, because it's like the big old should designers code questions or should developers design, and I think it can be a major added value to your career or to yourself personally if you know design as well as front-end development. Yeah.
I always try to pick it up. Like they're from, I don't know, was it from the Tailwind creator or these books? I can't remember exactly. They had like these little design snippet tricks or something.
Yeah.
Was it refactoring UI?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I think it was Refactoring UI by Steve from Tailwind. Steve Schoger or something?
Schoger. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great book for developers. I think I actually bought it in a Black Friday sale, but you know what happens to these books. I never got to read it. But I always wanted to be a good designer. I kind of never got there. Maybe one day. Can you really use Figma and these tools? They're always a mystery to me.
Yeah. I work with Figma or actually I started out as a graphic designer and web designer working in a small agency back in 2015, and then websites were made with regular Photoshop or Illustrator or tools like that. But then suddenly there was Sketch, and Sketch was a big game changer because making web designs was so easy all of a sudden. And then later on, there were great tools like InVision had an app as well, InVision Studio, I think it was called, and then Figma. And now I think it's all Figma because of the collaborative features, but also it's a web app, so also Windows users can use it. So they just they're kind of killing all the others in the design space.
Yeah, but I saw lately, I think Adobe released a web preview of their tools, and was kind of impressive that they like packaged up the whole Photoshop into a web browser application. I think there's actually a Medium article about how they did it and how they're loading, like lazy loading parts, and so you can finally share a URL right into your design. I think, we will see in the future if Adobe makes its comeback.
Yeah, that says something about how good the web or browser really is, how powerful it is.
Right. That brings us back to that Jan actually used PhoneGap for his thesis, and I also use Titanium Studio, both like wrapping web application into a mobile container. We will also get into something very special later on, because Jan actually developed a game, and I played that game for several weeks. Now, I gotta admit, at one point I uninstalled it because I was on a cruise and our internet was really spotty, and at that time I was number 2 actually in the rankings, so I just couldn't maintain my rank anymore, and I felt like and second, it actually became too addictive for me, so I just had to uninstall it. Jan is the creator of the Nightlands game. We will get into game development and how he built it in a few minutes as well. But besides that, as far as I know, Nightlands is a passion project, and your main work is freelancing. I always found this interesting. So how did you get into freelancing? Was it like a hard switch, or did you like slowly transition into it? How did you get your first clients? Could you explain that?
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, the start of my career in 2015, I was working in a design branding agency, doing these basic web stuff, like building marketing websites with plain HTML, CSS, and jQuery, or HTML newsletters, which we all know are really pain in the ass to make. Yeah. But I always had this urge of doing things myself, and in my spare time I was already helping out friends who had a music band with their website, or my dad has a transportation business, so I helped him out with the website as well. So after a while, I think in 2017, I thought to myself, why not go freelancing on the side? So I did that for a couple of years. I worked 4 years 4 days in the agency, and one day was my freelancing time. So that's how I got into it. And after a couple of years, I quit my job at the agency and became a full-time freelancer. Yeah.
That must be exciting. Finally taking that leap.
Yeah, it was very exciting, but also very scary because being a freelancer has both upsides and downsides. But one of the downsides is potentially is the insurity of jobs you can do. So, but it was mostly exciting.
Yeah, I always tell myself, because I'm also self-employed, that there's no limit to the top, but also to the bottom. So month could be 0 or it could be 100K. I mean, it's not going to be 100K a month usually, but it could. If I would like hustle and build a crazy project, it could. Which it usually can't if you like just work at an employment job. Yeah. So you said in 2015 you used jQuery back then. And in 2017, you became self-employed. And at some point along the way, you also picked up React, I guess. Was it also around that time, or after you became a freelancer?
No, it was in also around the time in 2017. There was all this fuzz on Twitter about new UI framework. And I've always been interested in designing and building UI, so going beyond the marketing websites. And then, I noticed all this fuzz on Twitter and just checked it out and found it really interesting. Did some experiments with React back in the agency. I remember creating a little dashboard with React, and I found it super interesting. And also, I always had this small idea to create a mobile app, and then as a side project in my spare time, I created my first React Native app as well back in 2017. So I learned a lot by doing these little side projects as well.
Yeah. I also basically taught myself Swift or Objective-C during university because a friend and I had an idea, and we just developed this numbers game, and I think this is like the perfect way. You don't really learn these skills in university, at least from my experience. You might pick them up in a boot camp or something. But usually if you have your own interest in the project you want to develop, then it's just the best way. So what was your first project you did with React Native? What was the app?
The app was called Flinder, and it was an app to get something, to get a suggestion to do something in your free time. But based on the current weather conditions, the time, and your location. So when you open the app at, let's say, 10 p.m., it would suggest all these fun nightlife things to do, like go to a bar, or go to a nightclub, or stuff like that. But if you open the app in a Sunday rainy afternoon, it would suggest the musea or indoor stuff to do. Based on those parameters.
Yeah, that's actually like a really cool thing. I mean, it's not becoming a super trendy app probably, but you had this idea, and I guess you combined some APIs and went through the whole process of shipping the app and just just that is like you can't pay for that experience. Just understanding how you can release an app. Was that that was the first app? Did you have any other apps in between that and the Nightlands app you've lately built?
As a freelancing project, I built another app for a company called Campaign, and it's the app I ended up building is basically like this digital work assistant where employees could use the app to request a holiday or find other colleagues and or send little compliments to each other or keep up with the latest news in the company and stuff like that. So that actually was my first big freelance project, but it was a React Native app.
I just looked it up on your personal website. I'm gonna put the link in the show notes as well. It has sort of an Airbnb vibe. From the, like, it's a lot of white. There's a date picker. I see some gradients. It looks really good, and they have like a few images of it. So let's get into why and how I found you. That is the Nightlands app. Let me try to describe. Let's paint a picture with my words for people. So 20 years ago, Simon really liked to play browser games. Those browser games were not like Flash games, but like text-based games. I don't know if anyone else has played these games, and I can't find exactly the games I used to play. And I feel like it's been different from country to country, because 20 years ago my English wasn't that good, so it was certainly a German game. But there was this cult and this trend of browser games. You log in, you build your army, you attack someone, like the army travels for 6 hours and something happens when it arrives, you get some resources and you become the biggest in the galaxy. And now, with the Nightlands app, I feel like Jan has built exactly this. I was been looking for this concept forever, or I didn't know I was actually looking for it. And when I installed this app and played it, it just, I don't know why, it triggered something internally in me. I showed it to my brother and other friends, and they were all like, yeah, cool app. It has like 3 ratings. I'm like, this is awesome. This is epic. This is so great, this app. And I was raving about it. So everyone listening, please download the Nightlands app. It is such a fun game. Now, Jan, from your perspective, introduce us to Nightlands. How did you come up with the idea, and how did the whole project started, and when? Because I expect that this took really long to build.
Yeah. So what Nightlands basically is a mobile text-based MMO strategy game. And it's funny you mentioned the browser text-based games 20 years ago, because that's exactly where I got my inspiration from. So I used to play Kings of Chaos with my brother when we were like 13, 14, 15 years old. And it was this big text-based browser game with over 200,000 players, I believe.
Such a tiny number compared to today's.
Yeah. That's really true. But yeah, back in those days, it was huge, especially for such easy text-based game. But my brother was really good at the game, and at one game round, he actually finished second of 200,000 players. So yeah, we were really into that. But also in that period, I found the concept of text-based browser games really interesting. So I started creating my own, and it was called the Cocktail Bar. And in the Cocktail Bar, players could sign up, and they got a unique link. And if they sent a link to their friends and family, and if they click on it, they actually sold a cocktail. And with the income, you could upgrade your bar and hire employees and all that stuff.
That is such an interesting concept, like inbuilt viral sharing.
Yeah. So that's back in 2004, but I couldn't program myself, so I talked to all these friends from Kings of Chaos who could program, and I have this idea for another browser-based game. Why don't we build it together? And I think we ended up with 7 different people building the cocktail bar, but it was a time before Git, and just you edit the code and just through an FTP server. You released it, and stuff broke all the time, but it was great fun. And it's, if I'm not mistaken, we had like 3,000 players as well. So
that's good. That's not too bad.
Was very fun.
What was the technology back then? PHP or something?
Yeah. It was PHP 4 or something, like the old school stuff, mixed together with then the HTML, and it was not. I believe the whole game was one big index file or something. With but it was great fun. And ever since I wanted to replicate that feeling of creating a community, because I've always enjoyed that feeling of when you build something and you release it into the world and people actually are playing it and enjoy it. That's for me one of the best feelings you can have. And then I've always I felt like these text-based games could really work as a mobile game as well. So that's how I came up with the idea for creating Nightlands, actually.
Yeah, it's so funny. I also tried to develop my own game, but I was like 14, maybe 15. I could barely use some PHP and connect to a database. And like, if you know these kind of browser games, you know that like they have usually some sort of resources or some like every hour you get something. And with the worst technologies ever, I tried to replicate this behavior, and I never released any of those. I had at least like 3 or 4 games. I was always into like the patrician and settler stuff, like building up my base and trading. And I still think, like, when I installed your app a few weeks later, I was thinking about building my own patrician, because there's still nothing good on the App Store, at least I feel, like where you can just go with a ship to a town, trade something, send the ship back, like import, export, selling and buying stuff while building out my city. I have a complete note on that, but I feel like this is taking very long, and it's not only about programming, it's also about game development, and I have exactly 0 experience with game development. So how did you approach this whole concept of designing the game, not the graphic, but like the idea?
As I said, it's mostly inspired on Kings of Chaos, and what I did was I tried to take out the flaws of Kings of Chaos and just make a better game based on that. But actually, it's kind of funny because I'm not a big gamer myself or something. I just happened to create that text-based game when I was 15, and it always was in my head to do again someday. So it was definitely a challenge to come up with a great gameplay. But when I was building the game, I released it really fast as a private beta, and it had like 100 people playing it or something, and they all provided feedback. So I tried to listen as much to the feedback of the actual players and try to improve the game based on the feedback. But I have these high-level ideas that I want to add to the game or something. But it's when it actually lands into the game, then it's mostly by the feedback of the actual players.
Yeah, I think especially for a game like this, it's crucial to have this sort of community that supports you and gives you initial feedback and really plays the game. Otherwise, I mean, people just checking out the app for 10 minutes, that won't really help you to develop any features. But in terms of design, I was also thinking about, let's get a bit into the app. So inside of the app, I can like create a warrior, or I can create different kind of units, and they have a different price. Like the one unit maybe takes up like 5 spares and like something bronze or golden or whatever. And there's like a gold behind this and value, and the unit 1 is like cheaper, but the other one is stronger. Like this whole concept of like the values playing together. How did you figure that out? To me, that's like magical. I would say like, okay, const cost for this 10, this one maybe 12, this one maybe 15. But in the end, it would just like be a total mess. Like, how do you balance the game?
Yeah, it's like how you describe it. It's a lot of trial and error. So I actually started out by mapping all the units with all the required items for the units, and then I tried to balance it with giving the items a value, and then increasing the value for the better items or weapons, and then I tried to give each unit a couple of items. So that the weaker units are more cheap to train or to buy, but yeah, it's a lot of trial and error, and I also have these game rounds in my game. So every 2 months now the game gets reset and starts over. But I will always change the values or the strength of the units, because. Yeah, it's all also because when people are playing the game for weeks or months, then you'll only know what works and what doesn't work. So that's really valuable feedback at that point. So yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a super interesting concept, which you sometimes see it. The problem is with most of these MMORPGs or whatever they're called, there are a lot of these, and they all look the same. You know, the category where they have some screenshots in the App Store or show a video and the actual game looks completely different. That's the category I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You basically have no chance of getting into the top 100, top 50, because there are players who are online all the time and spend a lot of money. And I found it really refreshing that when I found your app, there was like, okay, the new round starts tomorrow, and I was like, okay, let's give it a try. Let's just join it immediately. And then I played for the first 5 days. I was actually number 2 or number 1 during like the first 1 or 2 weeks, and I was like, this is so cool. I've never been number 1 without paying in a game. I just because I'm a grinding nerd, I can be number 1 in this game. And just by the way, to confirm that I've been a real nerd about this game, one morning I actually tried to reverse engineer the prices for all the units. So I made a sheet, I wrote down the units, the items they need, which power they will have, and so basically having an index of power to money, which is, I guess, what real nerds in the games are doing.
Yeah, but that's real fun to hear, and a couple of friends send me like photos of Excel sheets and stuff, or they're written down all the values of the units. So yeah, that's real fun for me to hear.
So yeah. I really enjoyed playing the game. It required only my time, and I didn't have to pay.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I think the mobile gaming space is really broken at this point, because they're all pay to win. Like you mentioned, the screenshots, they don't look like the actual gameplay. For instance, on Twitter, I only see ads for mobile games, but they all have these community notes on it saying like, this is not the actual gameplay.
Yeah.
So then I don't see the point in doing that, but so when starting out this game, I promised myself to never ever make this a pay-to-win game, because it just ruins the experience for everyone. And also, what you said on those game rounds, I had a couple of people complaining actually about that, because you lose all progress. Mm-hmm. But it's the only way, as this is a progressive game, where everyone gets a chance when it gets reset to actually compete for those top rankings. So
yes.
Yeah.
So for example, I play one of the biggest games, Clash of Clans, on and off. And my brother has been playing it basically since it was released, so he's like level 250. And I came back last year, and I'm now level 120. So I have pretty much no chance to ever reach him again in the foreseeable future, which is kind of sad. I mean, they balance it somehow different with also seasons and items you can get and whatnot.
But exactly.
But how long did it take you to release the first version of that app? Does it require a backend and the app?
I started working on it in 2020. So when COVID hit, we all had those free time. And back then I didn't work on it alone. I had a backend developer who worked with me on the campaign project, actually, who created the backend for the very first version of the game in PHP, because he's a Laravel developer. So I did the design and the React Native front end, and that I think it took like 6 months or something. But yeah, not full time working on it, but 6 months as a side project with a lot of time because it was COVID time. So
and by now, are you still working as a team of two, or are you now working alone on the application?
At the moment, I'm working alone on the application because I also I paid him to create the backend, but that was not sustainable. And then I reached out to the community of Nightlands for other people to help with the backend. And then I met these really great guys, Simon and Jorge, who helped me on the backend as well. But it was, they both had full-time jobs, and it was very hard to manage. That's why I decided to go solo on it. And I had one problem with that, and that was I'm not a PHP developer, and I don't have the interest in learning PHP as well. So I rewrote the backend in Node, which was a very, very fun thing to do actually, and I learned a lot by doing that. But it was the first backend I ever made. Did
you use any like cool framework or just Node and Express?
I used Apollo server because for I've worked with Apollo client before because it's a great state library for GraphQL APIs. So it was for me very obvious to choose Apollo server.
So we have now we had PHP, but now we have Node on the backend side and React Native on the application side. Why did you settle on GraphQL over REST API? Was there simply a preference, or did you work with it before, or did you think it would make the app any way better?
I worked before with GraphQL, and for me it was kind of obvious to do it with GraphQL, also because for a React Native app, I don't have lots of experience of using a REST API as a backend. So I just went with GraphQL, and when I look back to it now, it's actually a really great decision because you only have to query like one endpoint to get all the data. So for the game, which has lots of different queries and mutations, it's a good choice.
And what's the database you're using behind the server?
MongoDB.
Okay. Yeah. I was initially thinking that like Firebase or something would make a great database for sort of a real-time project. Did you consider it, or?
No, I didn't consider it because I try to have this pragmatic mindset of I'm going to build the backend by myself. I really don't know how to do it, but I know Apollo, so I use Apollo server. And then I looked through the docs of Apollo server, and they were all mentioning what the most easy way to hook a database is with MongoDB. So I just went with MongoDB without doing a deep dive into it or something. So that's it's working for now, but maybe the backend has these huge scalability problems in the future, but that's a problem we'll figure out then if ever that happens. So I try to have a very pragmatic mindset when developing products or doing projects.
I think that's the best way to actually ship something, and you've proven it. And I think you can have like a couple of thousands or 100,000s of users until you actually run into performance problems. So it was a smart move to go from PHP to Node, because you now understand what you do and you can confidently work on all the parts of the game. I have a question which is probably based on my own interest of developing such a game. Like, I've always been thinking about every hour or 30 minutes in the game you get like new resources, gold or whatever. How does it work? Is it is it as easy as just a cron job that runs every 30 minutes? Or like, I always fear that if I would do something like that and then like do a redeployment, I would just mess up those cron jobs or the timing. Like how does this game progression in the background work? Is it hard or is it easy?
Well, it's actually easy because it's indeed just a regular cron job that runs every half hour to get the gold and every hour to update the rankings and provide new citizens. But I'm using Heroku as a server. Yeah. And they have like these add-ons, and I'm just using like the Heroku scheduler or to use the cron jobs for that. And it's basically just a script that runs every 30 minutes. Yeah, that's the concept of a cron job. You probably know.
So it's not even directly in the server. It's also a combination with Heroku. That triggers the script basically every 30 minutes or something.
Also there, I just try to find the most easy way to set it up because I don't have a very good understanding of cron jobs or scheduled jobs or stuff like that. So I just went with what I thought was the most easy way, and it's working for now, and that's the
I mean I've used Heroku as well in the past. At some point, I think last year, they got a lot of backlash because they removed like the free instances and everyone had to pay. And then I looked for other solutions. So just a couple of others are like, I think render.com, fly.io, and Railway. I think I've used all of them before. I mean, they all provide pretty much the same. You connect your GitHub repository and they build it, and you hope that the build is not failing, because otherwise you're going to run into a lot of problems. Speaking of problems, what was the most challenging part of developing Nightlands, both in the back end and as well in the front end?
In the back end, it was definitely setting up the scheduled jobs, because, like I said, it was the first time I ever had to do stuff like that, and I particularly had difficulties understanding Redis, and I can say I don't even understand the full of it now, but it definitely was Redis on the back end for me. And on the front end...
what is Redis on the back end, to be honest? I think I used it, but is it like a queue for jobs or something? How are you using it?
Yeah, so for instance, when you train a unit, all these units have these different training times. So for instance, I think a militia unit needs to be trained for 10 seconds. So that's a scheduled job that needs to happen in the 10 seconds in the future. So that's being pushed into the Redis queue. And then Redis will execute the job. But yeah, how it works behind under the hood, I don't really know. But yeah, it does the job for me, and that's the most important thing. And on the front end, the biggest challenge was, I think, let me think. Like setting up all the screens in React Navigation, because the game now has like these I think like 20 different screens, and it became a big mess, and so I had to rewrite a lot of and also keeping up with all the updates, because things go really fast in the front end space. Like Apollo clients, they release very fast new versions, which aren't always backward compatible. So you have to keep up with that. Also, React Native itself.
Are you using Expo, or is it a bare React Native CLI project?
Yeah, it's a bare React Native project. Actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I never worked with Expo. I really like the customizability of a bare React Native stuff, so you're not locked in to anything. So the possibilities are endless. But I don't know if you're actually locked in to the Expo world if you're using it, but
yeah, you're actually not really locked in anymore.
yeah.
You're pretty free. Like you can do a pre-build, and then you still have like an iOS and an Android project, and you can do basically everything you want. But
Really,
if it works for you, I mean, if you're fine with it, that's cool.
Yeah.
But I assume you're actually, or I wouldn't think that an app like this is actually using a lot of native services. I mean, you have Apple Sign-In as far as I know, which is a native functionality, but beyond that, you don't really have any camera or anything else. Is there like anything challenging in terms of native modules or native code that the app requires?
no, I don't have any. I don't need to write any Swift or Java or something. No, it's not using, apart from the sign-in that you mentioned, it's not using any native things. No, it's all just the JavaScript packages.
I guess working on the React Native side is then probably kind of boring in the app project, as you like develop all the features in the backend and the front end is just like a representation of the data.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not boring. I wouldn't say it's boring, but yeah, it's what I'm most confident with doing. So the challenge for me is now coming up with a great gameplay and then translating that to the backend queries and mutations, and then the front end is where the for me where the fun is, to just create a nice app and to make sure it all looks great and feels great and connects into the game very nicely.
Speaking of things you want to add to the game, what are your next plans? I was thinking that if you embrace React Native or React Native Web, you could actually nicely also build a web application out of this. Is this on your roadmap, or I think you actually have an open roadmap? I'm sorry, I did not look it up, but can you let us know like what's on your roadmap next for Nightlands?
Well, I've thought about it in the past to also release it as a web version, because it's been proven that text-based games are great in the browser. But first and foremost, I want to create a solid and fun gameplay, and I feel that the game isn't there yet. So what it lacks, in my opinion, is like these community features, like a clan. Like a clan or an alliance where you can group together as a player to achieve goals, or do these challenges, or attacking a stronger opponent, but with your alliance. So that's what I'm going to focus on next, is the community aspect, and also improving the core gameplay better. I've also have this idea of using these. Of creating these magic items. So it's like these items you could buy and then use them to for instance, then you're double as powerful to attack someone when you use the item, stuff like that. Also implement trading between players to also create that community aspect. But the biggest new thing will be alliances.
Yeah, that's definitely something most games have. And for me, giving you some live feedback, I played it for a couple of weeks, and I think at some point I just got not bored, but it was very repetitive. So I was doing, my day was basically trying to fight opponents which have like gold available, attack them, put it into my stash, do it again in an hour or something. And it was like always very repetitive. When you are at the top, you can attack like 10 or 15 other people, so you kind of know the names, and everyone's just... Basically, we were all just exchanging gold, so everyone was stealing from each other, and I couldn't save up for the next level of my bank to save gold or something. There was like a gap between at some point. It worked in the beginning, but then not, and so I just felt like, oh, I'm doing this all the time, and then I was on the cruise, so everything came together, and
But that's really valid feedback, because it's not a game you open and you go like, okay, now I'm going to game for an hour. It's more like this casual game with repetitive tasks when you open once every 2 hours or something and spend your gold, or maybe attack another player. So that's that's also, I think, one of the biggest challenges for the game is to, when you open the game, there's always something new or something more exciting to do than just only attacking other players or spend your gold on new items.
Yeah, I think a lot of applications have these like tapping, like just tapping to collect resources. I think that's how a lot of games get you. Even if you just let like a tiny fraction of the resource, and you can also get it like in an hour. But this tapping, it is in the Simpsons app, it is in Clash of Clans, in pretty much everything. You can just log in and tap on some collector to collect your resources. That's how these games kind of get you. I feel, at least.
Yeah.
So you spent a lot of time on it. You probably haven't counted the hours, but it's going to be a lot of days over the years.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you said you don't want to ruin the game by introducing paid features, but do you have any idea how you could monetize this at the end of the day in like a couple of months or in a year? Anything that would not break the game, but still like help you to monetize it, because at some point you're gonna have to pay for the service. Heroku isn't free. You're paying probably like $20 to $50 per month on databases and hosting. Mm-hmm. Any idea how you can monetize the game?
Yeah, there are some ideas, and one of them is providing this premium plan, because the game is text based and works with a lot of numbers. So what I could do is provide this premium plan where you get all these extra statistics about how many players you attacked, how many total gold you collected, with your highest the amount of gold was you've stolen and stuff like that. So that's one of the things. But also another idea is to add these in-app purchases, but only if it benefits like the whole game, or just basic stuff, like if you want to change your username or something during an age, then you can buy it through these in-app purchases. And like, let's say they're called the night coins, then you can buy one night coin to change your username. But also if it benefits like the whole game. For instance, the game has this concept called mercenaries. And the mercenaries become available to hire between every 2 and 4 hours, and it's a random amount of mercenaries that's available for the whole game to hire. But if all the mercenaries are hired, you can't hire them. You can't hire any more. So that would be one of the things I could consider, is if you pay like one night coin, then a new ship of mercenaries will arrive. But it's like, it's beneficial for you, but also for everyone else in the game. So it's not it's in my opinion not a direct pay to win, but because you benefit like the others as well. And the mercenaries that become available will be way too much for one person to hire at a time. So that's also another idea. But yeah, another thing is ads. But I think ads in games, they just ruin the game experience.
Yeah.
So that's not even an idea, but
it makes the game look so cheap.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're in this fantasy world, especially text-based, it's all in your head. It's not like you visually see the world. It's like this build-up fantasy world. And if you then see an ad for like shoes or something, or a new watch, then like, doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, because I could only think about the usual stuff that I've seen in games before. So I buy night coins, and with my night coins I can research faster, I can train faster, I can attack stronger, whatever. But that's always going straight into the direction of pay to win, because somebody will pay €100 to be the strongest and the fastest and just climb the ladder. But the concept of like benefiting the whole game, I don't know if I've seen it in any kind of application yet, but I really like it, because it kind of fosters also the community of the game, as like these players, like maybe they can say something, oh, thanks Dave, thanks for bringing new mercenaries into the game. I think that's a a great way. And definitely, please don't do ads. They're so horrible.
No. I promise I won't ever do ads.
So I have one last question, which is once again very selfish. But if I now had an idea like a Nightlands game, as I said, I would really like to do something like a patrician. You have ships, you sail around. What do you think? Like, how long does a project like this take? Development of the back end, development of the front end, and shipping like the first version. What do you think people can expect if they want to get started? Because this is not the Flinder application you create in 5 days and then just give it a shot. This is certainly a higher time commitment. Do you have any idea what someone can expect? How long stuff like this takes?
Yeah, a lot of time to create a game like this also goes into the creativity phase, where you need to come up with a great gameplay, which is hard to put into hours. But yeah, all in all, I would say you have to take like a year or something to come up with a very, very basic version of the game. Because first you need to come up with a great gameplay, then you need to design it, then you need to set up the back end and the front end, stuff like that. So yeah, I would say like a year or something like that. Yeah.
So I should better probably team up with somebody, or at least one or two other people who can do like the back end and splitting up the work.
Yeah, and also I think it's great to not have any expectations of it. So if you think like, oh yeah, I really want to build this game, and you can picture already 1 million users or players, then you definitely will be disappointed. So if you approach it like it's a project for me to learn all the aspects of creating a digital product, then it's really something interesting to do.
Yeah, I guess the just having people play what you developed should be the reward in this case, and not tied to any financial outcome. How many players does Nightlands currently have, or how big is your community on Discord?
So now we're in H2, so the second game round of the public release. And we have like 100 active players at the moment, but in total there were 600 or 700 people who already played the game from all over the world, which is very nice. And in the Discord, I think we have like 80 people.
That's a strong foundation for future development and ideas, testing.
Yeah, and I'm not focusing on marketing yet or any kind of marketing stuff. But the greatest motivator for me now is really seeing these people in the Discord, for instance, talking about the game, talking about strategies, and I actually keep a little folder on my computer where I take a screenshot of all the very good feedback to where I take a look at once in a while to really motivate myself. And the people are actually enjoying this, so don't give up, because sometimes it's very tough to do as well. You have to really go for it and believe in yourself and really stop doubting yourself and stuff like that, and just go with it and enjoy the journey and not the destination. To wind up in a
I think those are perfect last words, and I can strongly encourage everyone to do the same. I also have a note in my notes application where I keep positive comments I get on YouTube and Twitter. So whenever I feel really bad, I look at the positive comments, and, which really uplift me. Which, if you put stuff out on the internet, you will always get a lot of hate, no matter what you do. So I can put up 600 free videos, and people will still have a negative comment under my videos, and I assume it's the same. Your game is totally free. You've spent like 100 days on it, and people will still say, why are there no graphics, or something that makes you feel bad. So yeah, having a positivity note definitely helps.
Yeah. I call the note the anti-imposter syndrome note. So
perfect. Perfect.
I could recommend it to everyone listening. Yeah.
So Jan, thank you so much for joining me. This was actually Jan's first podcast interview. He was very excited about it up front. I think Jan did a great job with that. Jan, where can people find out more about you or your projects?
You can follow me on Twitter, or X as it's called now, but I refuse to say X. And my profile is /Echelpoel. It's like my last name, but it's twitter.com/ECHLPL, or on my new website, jve.works. You can find some contact info.
And for everyone else, of course, also check out nightlands.app. There are the links to Nightlands, although this is not the project that's bringing any money, but it's the project that's bringing fun to you, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's the most fun project I've ever done.
Right, so definitely support Jan. Maybe I'm going to join again in the next century, in the next age when it starts over, and I'm looking forward to the new features then.
Yeah, I hope so.
If you want to learn more about React Native, you can also check out galaxies.dev, where I host all my courses. We have a free quick start course now, where the first part is free. Second part is about optimizing the app, and tons of other courses. So go check that out. And of course, subscribe to the podcast. And again, thanks Jan for taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.